Thanks for watching, and here's what's coming up on this episode of Fired Up.
Well, first of all, it led to the death of a Border Patrol officer, Brian Terry, who his family has never gotten answers from this government.
Because I don't think people realize that over 1,400 guns were walked to Mexico.
This is self-defense, not stand your ground. But I'm all for anyone carrying these days and being able to put scum in their place. Way to go, Vicki.
And the purpose of the Nevada Firearms Coalition is safe ownership of firearms for self-defense, for hunting, for competition, and for recreation.
This historical firearm is the FNFAL.
Hey, thanks for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. This program is all about guns, politics, and self-defense, issues that are important to shooters and important to people who use guns for self-defense. The panel today, we're going to discuss some interesting things. A defense of a third-party case, those always look good from the beginning, that you're going to run out and help somebody else who's in trouble, and sometimes they don't work out. A little bit more on ATF's Fast and Furious. They've just recently recovered more guns at crime scenes that were sold by the ATF to drug dealers in Mexico. And a nice story about an armed citizen saving lives during a violent knife attack that will detail out a little bit what happened. A great story from this perspective of why people should be armed. My panel this morning includes our marketing director and my co-host, Emily Miller. Randy Sutton, retired from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and prolific writer. Michael Giles with the law firm of Creed and Giles here in Las Vegas. And Tony D., master gunsmith, ex-police officer, and firearms trainer here at the gun store. So we've got lots of people that can answer lots of questions. We're going to start out this morning by talking about third-party defenses. They are often dangerous because you're never sure of what's going on in front of you, how the players got there. When I say third-party defenses, I mean where you rush in to defend somebody you don't know who appears to be in trouble. In this case, a woman, her name is Vicki, heard some breaking glass and a woman screaming in her apartment complex at 6 o'clock in the morning. Wanting to be helpful and sensing the danger, she grabbed her .45 auto, which she carries on a concealed carry permit, and ran in the direction of the sound to assist. Emily, do the rest of the story.
Well, from what I understand, what Vicki found was a man on the lawn outside of the apartment building, and he was beating the other woman named Christy with some type of a metal object. Now, the apartment door, I believe it showed damage from being kicked in. Vicki yelled at the man, whose name is Dan, and she yelled at him to stop, and then he turned to attack her in response to her coming to the aid of Christy. And then she returned with gunfire against Dan. So she goes to be the Good Samaritan, he attacks her, she returns gunfire and stops him from beating the woman with a metal object.
So, Randy, being
Yes.
the police guy at the moment,
Right.
deputy sheriffs arrive from the 911, the whole neighborhood called. They find two injured women, both have lacerations to their faces. The apartment door busted in, and they find Dan dead as a doornail on the front lawn. What do you look at from there?
Well, at least you have two live witnesses to tell you the story.
Right.
One dead guy, and of course, that, when the police arrive, that could be anything in the world. The two women ganged up on him and killed him for whatever reason. So who knows what what they were thinking, especially in response to the calls, the 911 calls. So they got to do a homicide investigation. They have to interview the women. They had to interview the witnesses and make a determination of what happened. Now, it's very interesting that a woman would come to take those type of steps from hearing, what she heard. I think she's a hero.
Oh.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that she showed a lot of guts, and she acted cool and took care of business. I mean, she went out to help somebody. That's what our society should be doing actively every single day. Somebody's in trouble, we go to aid them. Somebody is being attacked, we go to help them. That's what we want our citizens to do. So in this particular case, she had to take care of business. And why should she suffer injury to herself when she is going to the aid of another woman and she took care of business and killed the guy? Happy ending.
Happy ending. Michael?
The question that's been raised about this particular issue is whether it is a stand your ground issue or a self-defense type issue. The reality of the situation is that although Florida is a pure stand your ground state, which means you have no duty to retreat, and if you're attacked, you can stand your ground and fight back, this is actually more of a self-defense or defense of others claim. While there's some argument to be had that at the point she identified herself and told him to stop, he turned and attacked her, and therefore she could have retreated at that point, she didn't, so she was standing her ground. She was actually acting as a good Samaritan, defending another person's life. And so the stand your ground statute may come into play if she's charged, which I doubt, highly doubt, under the circumstances of this case. This is a good use of self-defense in defense of another person.
And both women sustained injuries.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't, like Randy said, she's a hero. She actually went in there, got involved, got injured, and did what she had to do. Go have breakfast. It was a very easy, it was 6 o'clock. Very tidy little case. I don't see a problem with this anywhere.
As Bob said, though, defense of others can sometimes be a challenging situation. I'm glad this one worked out for her, but when you run into a situation like this, you really don't know. There's been more than one circumstance where an undercover police officer was arresting somebody and a good Samaritan saw what they thought was a criminal attacking somebody and shot him, only to find out that he looked that way because it was his job.
Thankfully, it's kind of a rare occasion.
It's rare. That's very rare.
Yeah.
And in this case, I'm comfortable saying that if you come around the corner and there is a male straddling a female and beating her with a metal object, it's probably not an undercover police officer. It exacerbated by the fact that she didn't just immediately start shooting. She said, "Stop doing that, I've got a gun," or something to that effect. And then he attacked her. At that point, whether she had a right to defend the other person or not, she certainly had a right to self-defense for herself.
But you raise a very good point when you talk about the undercover police, because there's been a number of shootings of undercover police officers or off-duty police officers who are getting involved in a third-party situation because they feel it's their duty to do that. And then an on-duty officer or even another off-duty officer uses his weapon.
If you say, freeze, drop the gun. If the bad police don't move, you didn't move, because that was the code. That was the words. Not anymore, but
it would be nice if
police don't move, you didn't move.
It would be nice if under every circumstance something like that works, but we've all been in crazy situations where you really didn't know what was happening until it was all over. As a deputy sheriff, I rolled up on what was apparently a gang fight, 6 or 7 kids, or a couple of ball bats involved, somebody with a knife. And as I was walking up to it or coming up to it from one side, a uniformed officer was coming up from the other side. And the only thing that kept me, because I was in plain clothes, kept me from getting shot is as the officer started to pull his gun up, I held up the Universal Metro sign for code 4, asking if he was okay, because everybody was already proned out. And he stopped and said, "Are you a cop?" I thought, well, maybe I should show a badge at this point. That might be the smart thing here, right? It came to me a little late, but it came to me. Unfortunately, in these situations, when you inject yourself into another fight, you may be right. You probably are right if you're a rational person. But, take that extra half a second to say to yourself, do I have to do this to save a life? If you do, then in every jurisdiction where self-defense to defend yourself is legal, it is probably legal to defend another person.
Remember, there's also another issue here that could have raised its ugly head, and that is, this is a domestic situation. Very often in these domestics, the woman who was getting beaten would come to the defense of the other half. And could have made up any story.
Exactly why I picked this case.
There's actually
because
some comments
somebody's getting sued.
This woman is an absolute hero, but this was so much more dangerous than she realized. If that first victim doesn't want to back her up. They're just having a discussion. She says nothing happened. We were just play fighting. This woman showed up with a gun, and he, of course, swung at her because he was afraid he was going to get killed.
Exactly.
This is why uniformed police respond to these and not
how many
plain
experiences
clothes
have you ever
people.
had at a family trouble where you finally break up and then the party turns on you? You know, the other
it's
half
a
of the domestic.
common occurrence.
It's a common occurrence. So it's
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a great case of self-defense and our defense of others. The woman's a hero and all that. And this led in a lot of the papers in Florida when this happened. And they missed that part in talking in their news stories about, but when you do this, if it doesn't work out to what you think it worked out, you know, is the biker who's beating up the guy in the suit, the biker is actually the undercover narc, and the guy in the suit is a drug dealer, and you shot the wrong guy. This has come up when we've talked before, and I've always said to people, you know, if you have the opportunity to police officers, if you can't get their attention, pepper spray everybody. Don't get involved in bullets flying until you're sure who is who. And in this case, again, she's a hero. There's some of the comments
I actually pulled up a couple
from the blog that accompanied this story.
A couple of my favorites were a woman named Ashley said, with State Farm music playing in the background, like a good neighbor, Vicky Rock is there, which I think is one of my all-time favorites. But one that I think is really important, a guy named Johnny said, this was self-defense, not stand your ground. But I'm all for anyone carrying these days and being able to put scum in their place. Way to go, Vicky. By the way, when are women going to stop letting abusers abuse? If a guy lays his hands on you, he does not love you. Kick him square in the, and we'll, insert male genitalia slang. And then make sure he never comes near you again, which I think is very important. And that, like you said, that is a very dangerous situation, but she's not going to get beat with a metal stick any longer.
A good case for Vicky, and I'm really glad it worked out. Just the warning is to viewers that not everything appears the way it is. If you can call the police and let them handle it, let them do it. They have bulletproof vests and they have free lawyers, and you don't.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up.
For him not to be held accountable, he should be in jail instead of being the Attorney General of the United States.
And we are back. The gift that keeps on giving to anybody who does firearm stories, it's Fast and Furious one more time. This week, the CBS News came across the fact that 3 more Fast and Furious guns were recovered at a crime scene in Mexico. The Justice Department did not release what crime it was. We can expect it was probably murders. Most of them have been, where these guns have shown up. But 3 more, this is, I don't know how many people now being killed by these guns that ATF let go across the border, or people killed here because the guns didn't get across the border. It's still happening. We still got people being murdered with guns supplied by our government, which is ludicrous.
This is going to go on for a long time, because I don't think people realize that over 1,400 guns were walked to Mexico. 1,400 guns, right? They're not going to get them all in a week, a month, a year. This is going to go on for a long, long time.
Yeah, this is going to go on for a long, long time, but this needs to be kept in the forefront of our discussions, because what this was, well, first of all, it led to the death of a Border Patrol officer, Brian Terry, who his family has never gotten answers from this government. And Eric Holder should have lost his job over this. Once again, I talked to Eric Holder, and I say, you should be gone. But continues to be our Attorney General, and every time that we see another senseless death coming from this botched, ridiculous operation, I believe that Eric Holder should be held personally responsible and tried for it.
Eric Holder, as the Attorney General, went before Congress, provided information that Congress felt was less than truthful.
called lying.
Well, it depends on what the definition of is and walking is. Long and short, Congress held him in contempt, which is a huge thing, and it wasn't a particularly partisan hold in contempt. It was some bipartisan support there. He actually refused to come to Capitol Hill for a very long time because they could have held him, actually arrested him by the Capitol Police. There was some debate as to whether or not Capitol Police were going to go to his office with his personal protection detail and who was going to prevail in that. They reached an accommodation, but he was held in contempt. He still hasn't provided the information they've requested. They've provided some documents, but not many. And the crazy part behind this is that I can't see a legal basis for him to withhold the information from Congress. I don't think
Didn't Obama claim executive privilege to keep the documents out?
He did, but here's the thing. Obama claims I knew nothing about it. In order for executive privilege to apply, it has to have been a decision he was involved in, and executive privilege applies. And we allow this for presidents because we want them to have open and frank discussions with their advisors. And if everything that goes on in cabinet can be discovered, then they'll stop having these open and frank conversations and, quite honestly, be unable to do the job effectively. So either he knew this was happening and sanctioned it, and therefore it's executively protected, or he didn't, it's not in his cabinet, and therefore it's not executive privilege material. He can't have it both ways.
Plausible deniability. That's what this is all about. And yet the Congress seems impotent in its efforts to hold responsible the people that are responsible. And who do they fire in this deal? Some lower level ATF guy that really had nothing to do with it.
They fired the whistleblower. Yeah. The guy who ran the office has just been confirmed as the new permanent director of ATF.
The absurdity of as a law enforcement officer, you want to stand proud when you talk about other law enforcement people. You want to stand proud when you think about what our government is supposed to do. And the Attorney General of the United States is the highest law enforcement officer in this country. And yet, what do we see? We see corruption. And when I see him speaking before the cameras, I get this physical disgust because he represents everything that I have found dear. He represents the negativity of that.
Unfortunately, the situation that they're in is either Congress has to be willing to march over to the Justice Building, have him arrested, and thrown in the Capitol House jail. They actually have a jail cell there. It's used for storage right now. But back in the day, 150 years ago, they would routinely take people who were in contempt and lock them up. They would have to be willing to do that, or they would have to be willing to step over him to his boss and do something along the lines of a contempt proceeding with the president, or in that case, it would be an impeachment proceeding. I think that there are some in the House who would be willing to do that, but they're comfortable in the knowledge that if they did that, it would go nowhere because the Senate holds the trial, and the Senate, as currently constituted, would not take that mantle up. There's a stalemate. We have a system of government with three branches. They're equal, co-equal branches of government, but they have to respect each other.
Exactly.
And I don't think that that's going on, especially in this particular case.
This is about accountability. You know, we are accountable for our actions, but the only way to be accountable is to be held accountable. And he has not been held accountable for anything because of his relationship with the President of the United States.
I know that it's been hotly debated what this was actually about. The ATF and the Justice Department says we were trying to track these firearms. We wanted to see where they were going and catch the end users. Some of the people who were whistleblowers said that just simply isn't true. They would have me go take 10, 12, 15 rifles and put them in a building, and then I actually watched them and got in trouble because I caught the guys coming to get the rifles. I think it is instructive to remember that this administration and Eric Holder in particular, prior to his current position as a U.S. attorney, was very anti-gun and is on record as saying some years ago that we basically have to brainwash the youth to believe guns are bad so that we can change this culture. And I don't think it's changed that much. I believe that Fast and Furious or Gun Walker, whatever it is that they want to call it, was kind of a false front operation. I know that's a popular theory. I wouldn't go so far as to say they intentionally sent these guns into Mexico knowing they would be used in crime, but they weren't too upset by it either, I don't believe.
Well, the point is that the Attorney General comes to testify before Congress, who is overseeing what he's doing.
And lies to him.
And he lied. And he's lied since.
That's exactly what it comes down to. And for him not to be held accountable, he should be in jail instead of being the Attorney General of the United States.
Well, this is only one of the false scandals that's going around. This administration has a history of top-level people going to Congress and either lying to Congress or refusing to answer questions that they have a legal obligation because of their position to answer. As long as Congress allows it to happen and as long as the media chooses to report it in a way favorable to the administration, it's not likely to change. Something major has to happen to shake this situation up. We've already got 1, maybe 2 Americans killed with these firearms, hundreds of Mexican citizens.
Yeah, they're guesstimating now over 300 Mexican citizens have been killed in robberies and extortions and gunfights with police and whatever. Police been killed. I mean, we got 2 officers killed. The Mexicans have had dozens of officers killed with these guns. Right.
For all we know, there are more Americans that have been killed. They simply didn't leave the firearm laying on the ground next to the body like they did with Mr. Terry and a few other incidents where they recovered the actual firearms. There are plenty of border incursion type shootings where they find brass, but they don't find the firearm. For all we know, those were Fast and Furious guns.
I can't imagine in this shop that we're going to say to the world, well, we're going to find out where guns are going when dope dealers steal them. So I'm going to give out a bunch of guns to dope dealers. And when they murder people, that they're not going to come back and say, somehow that's my fault because I gave them a gun. But nobody's saying that here. Nobody's taking responsibility for their actions. And this isn't some phony scandal. We're dealing with 300 body bags here. These people were murdered, and they're blowing it off like...
And as Tony said, if we have a body per rifle, it'll be upwards of 1,400 before it's all done. And that's probably a low estimate.
How is the risk and the collateral damage worth it in the end? I don't understand that.
Again, the question is, what was the real purpose? Yeah. Was it to track these firearms, or was it for something else? That's going to be left up to history to determine.
This is a segment we're not going to solve with this panel, obviously. It's just got everybody upset, and there's a criminal thing going on here that none of us can control. We'll be back after a couple commercials and talk about something else.
And the purpose of the Nevada Firearms Coalition is safe ownership of firearms for self-defense, for hunting, for competition, and for recreation.
This historical firearm is the FNFAL.
If you like the television show, try us on radio. We're on KDWN 720 on your dial on Saturday from 4 to 6. And the KDON show is interactive. You can call in with questions or comments and actually talk to us live on the air. And we are back here on Fired Up. With me at the moment is Don Turner. Don is the president of the Nevada Firearms Coalition, which is a branch of the NRA here in Nevada. Don, can you give us a little bit of background, how this group started and when, and what your mission is for gun rights?
Sure, Bob. First off, let me say by how much we appreciate you having us here on your show today.
Well, you're more than welcome.
And for 35 years, the state of Nevada had the State Rifle and Pistol Association. And it was the NRA association for the state. In about 2007, for what reason or another, it went defunct.
I know they disappeared. I called them when I was running for office trying to get their endorsement. I couldn't get them to answer the phone. So
from about 2007 to 2011, basically the state had no association. Right. So earlier than that, I had been on the NRA board of directors, and they asked me if I would do something about starting the state association up. So I went to visit with them, and there was just no energy there to do it. So As they say, no good deed goes unpunished. I was tasked by the NRA to go ahead and start a state association, and we did. And we named it the Nevada Firearms Coalition. And it's like all new organizations, we've been in existence just about under 2 years now. And our membership is just about 800 and growing. We had our first fight at the legislative session this year, since we're fortunate the Nevada legislature only meets once every 2 years. It gave us some time to get organized, and we were able to raise a little money to hire a lobbyist. And the purpose of the Nevada Firearms Coalition is safe ownership of firearms for self-defense, for hunting, for competition, and for recreation. So those are the key things, and we have divisions for each of those. So we have a competitive division, a legislative division, a competitions division, a conservation division, a range and retail division, communications division. So we do have a board of directors that we meet, and we try to move forward with the organization. We have a very active legislative division. Like I said, this year we were able to hire a lobbyist full-time, which helped tremendously.
I've seen your legislative guys and you many times arguing with the Assembly or the Senate on particular bills that would have hurt the gun industry and hurt shooters in general.
Because of Sandy Hook and stuff, we figured that if we came out with zero, nothing for guns or nothing against guns, we would be lucky. And there's just, we did pretty well, and at the end of the session, as you know, Mayor Bloomberg sent 11 lobbyists to Carson City.
I remember
and,
yes.
and pretty well bought every anti-gun politician he could afford to buy. And we fought a hard fight there, and we were lucky at the end that Governor Sandoval agreed with us that it wasn't a mental health bill, it was just a unadulterated gun control bill, and he vetoed it.
I'm sure Mr. Bloomberg will be back with his entourage.
He will.
I got to mention in the middle of this that we pulled some stats when I discovered that actually from your newsletter that Bloomberg was paying these guys to be here, that the ATF, of course, keeps statistics on crime guns, and according to them, as far back as they have records, there has never been a crime gun seized in New York that entered commerce in the state of Nevada. So
I'm sure that's true.
He's fighting to keep New York safe by restricting Nevada gun laws,
But
and we ain't done anything to him.
Yeah, but you know, the irony is knowing the history of Las Vegas, I'll bet you there's guns from New York that have done lots of bad things here.
I'm sure they have in our
Over the
recent
years.
past, yes.
So maybe we should, anyways, we don't want to return the favor to the good mayor.
We should lobby New York to keep their guns out of Nevada.
I think that would be a prudent thing to do. But we did find out that 2 of his lobbyists were paid city employees. And now that's caused a national problem, and there's an investigation, and he may not get out of he may wish he had never come to Nevada to start with. So that would be happy.
A lot of us wish he'd never come to Nevada to start with.
I know.
But it's good that you've been able to get a group together and really do what you did to stop that stuff from going through, because I'm quite sure that at least some of it would have gone through had you and your group not been up there hollering about it and pushing lawmakers.
Well, we were very fortunate. Citizen Outreach gave us an award after the legislative session for the Grassroots Organization of the Year. So that was, for a new organization, that was quite an honor.
Not bad.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that. But for people who live here in Nevada, if you don't want bad gun bills, there's strength in numbers. And we need more people to be members. We appreciate your membership, and we just need volume of people. And we have a good web page, and we've got our first decent-looking firing line, which is our bi-monthly magazine, came out the other day. We've got a good graphic artist doing that. So we're slowly getting all the credentials that a major gun organization would have.
And when they edit this show, the viewers will be seeing a sign across your hands here that says www.nvac.org, nvfac.org, that tells them where to contact you and to join and get information.
And we would really appreciate their support. We need help. All of our committees need help. Our directors are doing a decent jobs, but they need committees to work with them. So we're growing. We know we're growing. For a startup organization, this year at the legislature, we didn't do too bad. So I'm pretty proud of the group.
Well, I appreciate your coming down for the show, and people that are watching this show now, if you own a firearm or in Nevada, you need to be a member of this group. They do a lot of good work. So use the address and join up, because we got another fight coming next legislature.
We do, and our biggest issue is we want preemption, one gun law for all of Nevada, not 6 gun laws for residents of Clark County and 1 gun law for the rest of Nevada. So that's where we're going. If you want us to achieve that, jump on board and help us out. And we really appreciate your support, the support of the gun store, and all your assistance that you've given us to get this far.
Don, I thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll see you arguing at a committee, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will.
We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
This historical firearm is the FNFAL. Hi, this is Tony D from the gun store in Las Vegas. Thanks for tuning in to Fired Up with Bob. This historical firearm is the FNFAL. FN is Fabrique Nationale, it's a Belgian company, and FAL stands for Fusil Automatique Léger, which means light automatic rifle. This was originally designed in 1947, and it was developed in Belgium, and it was adopted by NATO in the 50s. So this was the gun that was issued to over 90 countries as their basic assault rifle or their basic military issue weapon. It is a gas operated. It's in 7.62 by 51 caliber, which is commonly referred to in the United States as a .308. It's a very heavy gun. There's certain different configurations originally that came out with it. Some of them have plastic foreends, some of them have wood foreends, some of them have wood grips, some of them had folding bipods. Every country that used this gun changed it. In Austria, they call it the Sturmgewehr Model 58. In Rhodesia, South Africa, it was called the R1. They had wood stocks on them. It was really ironic that when Britain was fighting the Falkland Wars, they were both using the same rifle. The British used one that they built over there called the L1A1 that was in inch configuration. The Argentines were using the Belgium one, or it was actually built in Argentina, but it was on the Belgium design, which was the metric configuration. So they were basically shooting at each other with the same rifle. This is a very heavy, high, powerful, very powerful weapon, and it's used not too much anymore. Some smaller countries are still using it as their main battle rifle, but a lot more, all the countries nowadays have gone to the smaller 5.56 cartridge that was adopted by NATO. Israel they had a heavy barrel one. It's a very powerful gun. It normally, as an assault rifle, was in full automatic and semi-automatic configuration. I can tell you from personal experience, shooting one of these in full automatic is not a pleasant experience. And for a guy my stature, it's almost impossible to control. This one here is in semi-automatic, and we're going to shoot. Normally they had a 20-round box magazine, and this one's loaded with 10 rounds, so we're going to be firing 10 rounds. All right, normally they come with a 20-round box magazine. We have this one loaded with 10 rounds of ammunition, and we're going to load it and shoot it. Insert the magazine in, charge the weapon, and it's ready to go. As you can see, it's a very powerful weapon, and it's a fine shooting gun. It's the Cadillac of assault rifles.
There's a pink pepper spray.
Okay.
That'll go with
See,
your
okay,
stuff.
see, this you can
And
see in the bottom of like your purse,
here's
or it
some
would be easy
pink-
to find. You're watching Fired Up, a show about guns, politics, and self-defense.
Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to Fired Up.
And here we go.
Our panel talks about topics affecting you and the Second Amendment.
The title of the show is Fired Up. And when it comes to this, I am fired up.
If we take these Virginia numbers, gun sales being up and crime being down,
No one expects the Supreme Court of New Jersey to actually overturn this law.
And nothing is off limits.
Eric Holder, he panders only to a racist agenda.
I see people jogging in the park with their iPod on. They're walking victims.
We show you ways to protect yourself.
I put the laser in the middle of the target. It delivers 50,000 volts over a very short period of time.
And expand your knowledge of self-defense.
And with AB 143, it basically allows concealed weapons permit carriers to carry their firearm on campus.
And help you know your rights.
When traveling with firearms, it's important to know the law in the jurisdiction you'll be traveling to or through.
Catch Fired Up every Saturday at 8 a.m. on MyLV TV.
and we are back here on Fired Up. We've had some interesting stuff in the magazines that we get here. There's one called Shooting Sports Retailer, which is dedicated to, it's a product book and advertisers that sell to us their wares. And one of the questions in their article was, when we market to women, what do women want? That's a long question you have in life for other things.
Show's not long enough.
But yeah. So looking at what we have in firearms and self-defense, we found a lot of products that are really directed at women.
What do you mean directed at women? Just because they're pink?
Well, yeah,
Girly?
they make pink everything, from tasers to guns to you name it. I don't really agree that necessarily is what women want to buy. They're not going to buy a gun because it's a pink gun, or a can of pepper spray because it's pink.
That's not why they're going to buy it. Women are buying those products, or I'll speak for myself, but I would get those things because of what they provide me, the protection that they provide. I'm not just going to buy a pepper spray because it's pink, or a taser because it matches my purse. Like, it's insulting as a woman for them to just market it as such and think, oh, women are going to buy this simply because of the color and not the content or practicality of what it is.
I agree, but we sell an awful lot of them.
Yeah, we offer them to women, but I feel like we offer them a wide selection of those things. And yes, I feel at some point they're just buying into this marketing idea of pink is for girls, and it doesn't have to be.
And it's not a legitimate, that really makes me feel bad, because I got you some things. I got you one of these pink headscarves.
God.
And I got you a pink speed loader for your
I should really
pistol,
look under the table.
and a little pink hat that says the gun store.
Oh, yeah, well, we sell these.
And I got you some pink
Okay,
earmuffs.
okay. Well, I see where this is
And
going.
Here's a I Love Guns and Coffee pink,
Here.
and a pink top.
No, I don't want
And,
any of this.
This is a little, really cute pink hat.
Okay, well,
And
this
wait,
has gone too
there's
far.
another pink hat. We're marketing. There's a pink pepper spray.
Okay.
That'll go with
See,
your
okay,
stuff.
see, this you can
And
see in the bottom of like your purse,
Here's
or it
some
would be easy to
pink
find.
grips for your Smith & Wesson.
I don't even have a Smith & Wesson.
But
This is
well,
all
you
getting
don't.
worse.
Here's a Taurus with pink grips
I mean, I'll
for
take
you.
the gun.
And
this
wait,
is where we're going with that.
I've got a pink knife and a pink taser.
Okay.
What more could a woman want from a gun shop?
I see you've made a very strong point here. I don't think that women want all of this stuff because of the color. Sure, it might match something that they own, but they want to feel safe. They don't want to worry about getting attacked. I'm not going to buy, personally, any of this just because it's supposed to be girly. There's nothing girly about a firearm in and of itself. It's a gun. It's there to provide self-defense and to protect you from those attacks. It's not there to like match a hat.
So what do you carry
God.
for self-defense?
You can carry anything you want. It doesn't have to be a girly pink gun. I don't feel as though that provides any benefit to besides the fact that if it's in the bottom of a purse or a jacket, you can see it.
So you don't carry a gun that's a fashion statement?
There are guns, and if we're gonna play this game, I don't have a pink gun, however, we do. It's not pink.
Well, that's very attractive. Does it match
Isn't
your
it?
necklace?
It doesn't, because I'm more of a white gold girl, but I do. There's all sorts of stuff. There's Louis Vuitton painted Glocks, and there's designer prints and designer accessories that are more expensive than the actual gun itself. And at the end of the day, I don't need Barbie's dream gun. I need something that is going to provide me protection against an attack. And this is all great and cute, but that shouldn't be why women are buying it. They should buy something that works for them. They should buy something that they feel comfortable shooting, and not just for the appearance. But I mean, it's all cute. Yeah, okay, we do sell this stuff at the gun store, but I don't think that that's the main selling point.
Well, Emily, I have to say, I'm somewhat disappointed.
Sorry I've let you down.
We'll be right back.
When traveling with firearms, it's important to know the law in the jurisdiction you'll be traveling to or through. If you have a state-issued CFP and you want to carry your firearm in another state, you need to know if that's permissible. Each jurisdiction may have its own set of laws. You should check to see if your CFP is honored in that state under reciprocity. You also need to understand what that state's individual laws are concerning carrying a firearm. For example, in some jurisdictions, even with a CFP, it's illegal to have a firearm in any establishment that sells alcohol by the glass. In some jurisdictions, it's required that if you're stopped by a police officer to immediately identify yourself as a CFP holder and that you're armed. Saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't know that was the law," may work, but it may not, and then you may need an attorney. When traveling, it can also be a challenge going through other jurisdictions. The 1986 Firearms Owners Protection Act was passed in part to protect you when you travel with firearms through jurisdictions that have more strict laws. However, in order to be protected by the law, you must follow it exactly. It is a long and challenging law, but in general, if you're traveling with a firearm, it must be unloaded and locked in a container. The trunk of your car will work, but if you have a modern vehicle without a trunk, the firearm needs to be secured in a hard case container that is locked, and the ammunition must be secured in a different container, and both of them must be as far from the driver as possible. Also, while traveling through a state where the laws may be more strict, you cannot stop for an extended period of time, and you must stay close to the main roads. If you stop overnight or for more than a brief period for respite or gas, you become subject to that state's laws. Again, this is a complex law, and you should consult with an attorney in that jurisdiction if you intend to travel with firearms.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up.
Suddenly, the individual who was irrational moments before realized his own mortality.
Don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Somebody had to say that.
Yeah, of course.
And we are back. We have a happier case here. This is a stabbing, if that would be a happy case, but this is a happy case of perfect justifiable self-defense and brave people jumping in and helping. ABC News came up with this in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is going back to mid-year here. A concealed weapon permit holder was in a market, Smith's Market, and was able to stop a violent knife attack without a shot being fired and save a lot of people from being injured. Perfect story. Emily, I'll let you start on what happened here.
Well, this is a great example of why honest citizens should be allowed to carry guns. The man went into the store to purchase a knife and then immediately turned it into a weapon and started stabbing customers in the store. He tried to slash all the people around him, and he was screaming, "You killed my people," whatever that means. Very not stable as a human being, and he caused quite a scene. I believe he stabbed 2 people. They lived, but he stabbed 2 people.
Yeah, he stabbed one in the stomach, another one was stabbed in the head, another individual tried to jump on him to grab him and got slashed on the arms. Okay. And then another individual who was there who had a firearm pulled out the firearm, showed it to the guy because he was facing him at this point and said, "Stop." And suddenly, the individual who was irrational moments before realized his own mortality.
Don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Somebody had to say that.
Yeah, of course. He got real rational. He stopped. He dropped the knife and actually became very submissive until officers arrived. I don't want to say funny. The interesting thing about this is actually quite common in certain situations where a person is aggressive until they realize they themselves might get hurt and they stop. It happens in a lot of shootings where as soon as the individual realizes there's another person with a gun, they either stop or commit suicide. This guy would have had a little bit of a challenge doing that with the butcher knife or the knife he had, but he did stop attacking people, and I'm sure if this individual with a gun didn't save lives, he kept a whole bunch of people from very bad knife wounds.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know, there's some statistical evidence that's very when we talk about how weapons prevent violence. You know, in over 1 million use of force incidents against citizens, just the threat by the citizen who's being threatened to use violence against the suspect ends the ordeal right there.
It's well over 95% of all violent encounters end when somebody produces a firearm.
You read your American Rifleman every month, that column, The Armed Citizen, and they give several newspaper articles from all over the state or all over the country that you know, the mere presence of the firearm could be, you know, would stop. And I know in Rochester, you know, the newspaper there was a Democrat and Chronicle. We used to call it the Demagogue and Communist. Very anti-police. And there was one day the police beat reporter got replaced, and the young lady came, and we had to put her out. And I never forget it. You know, she wrote a lot of very anti-police stories, and then we did a couple of ride-alongs with her. So she was with one of my boys one night, and then went family trouble, broke up the family trouble, and then she went to one guy, I'm sure we can communicate on a higher level than this. Pow. She was, I mean, they had to get rid of her because she was the most pro-police reporter I've ever seen after that incident, and it just turned her right around. But unfortunately, you don't see that happen. You don't hear about it because it's bad press. Number one, guns are bad to begin with. And then number two, they don't want to show people protecting themselves or defending themselves because we should all be dependent on the police or whatever. And
this is a great story from the perspective that, you know, the police are minutes away, right? You're
Sure.
there,
Yeah,
police
minutes
are,
away.
unless they happen to be showing up to go shopping, they're a ways away. But just as importantly, this individual was unarmed till they went to the store. They procured a weapon at the store. So this defeats the whole, well, if we take guns away, there won't be any violence.
Right.
Somebody who is bent on hurting others will find a way. They could have bought a frying pan and started clocking people over the head. Any number of items in the store could have become a weapon. It was only a firearm that stopped this.
Yeah, and you know, this case, because we just started this show with Vicky's case, and that's what normally would have happened to Vicky in most cases. When she ran out and sees the guy beating on the other woman, when she produced the gun, normally that stops the fight right there. It was really surprising that the guy attacked her too.
I don't think he took her seriously.
You know, it may well
That
be.
actually happens quite often. I actually, you know, represented a guy who was held at gunpoint, and he looked at the person and said, "You're not going to shoot me." When they got out of the hospital after the surgery, you know, he couldn't believe he'd been shot. Well, what in the world made you think that individual was not going to shoot you? Well, I just didn't think they had it in them. You'll think better next time.
They do that. I interviewed a rape suspect one night in the jail. He was being taken down for he'd been shot up in the shoulder, and he was taken to the hospital, and I happened to be with the officer that got him there. And we were alone for a little bit while the officer was doing some other stuff. And I asked the guy, because I knew what had happened. He broke into a lady's house. She's got a gun. She's screaming at him to get out of my house, and he kept walking toward her, and she shot him. And I said, I don't understand why, you know, I know what happened here. Why didn't you just run away? And he looked at me and he said, I didn't think she'd really shoot me.
But you know, statistically, that happens very frequently. That's when homeowners get their guns taken away from them because they didn't have what it took to shoot them. So, you know, it's the bad guy who is playing the odds. It's just nice when he loses.
That's going to probably do it for this episode of Fired Up. We will be back in this same time slot next week, same time, same station. Remember, when you saw the crawl before, you can send questions in to that address they gave, questions@firedupwithbob.com. Thank you, Randy, for being with us one more time. Emily, Michael Giles,
Pleasure to be here, Bob.
always full of lawyery stuff. Tony, thanks for coming by. Thanks for watching. If you like the television show you just saw, tune in tonight at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. We're on KDWN News Talk Radio, 720 on your AM dial from 4 to 6, and call in live and talk to us with your questions and comments.